Hello.
Were you expecting it to take a picture?
Nope.
Okay. Hi, welcome to the BSI Comics Vodcast. My name's Adam.
I'm Fletch.
And we're here to bring you an upbeat comics video
Cast.
kind of
Thing.
I don't know. I'm not good at the upbeat thing.
No.
I haven't eaten in a while. And I need some... that was gonna go really weird. So anyway, so let's talk. Let's forget all about your worries about what's going on in the world today, and let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the comics world.
Interesting times.
Yeah, as few and far between as they are, but we've had a few interesting notes in the last week.
Mostly from the Marvel side.
Mostly from the Marvel side. DC's just putting out books that people are going nuts for. They're not really making any announcements right now.
Right.
They kind of made all their announcements so far. Now there was one little bit that you had told me about. Brian Hitch's Justice League of America will no longer be coming out.
To the surprise of no one.
He is the writer on Justice League, the new Justice League Rebirth. However, Justice League of America, which was slated to already be finished and then got pushed back a few months, which all Brian Hitch books do, is now just not coming out.
I think the line right now on the current Justice League Rebirth is at 3, so get your bets in on the over-under on when those are going to start coming.
To be fair, he's just writing Justice League.
Mm-hmm. The line is at 3.
I don't know. I complain about this often. If you're going to have an artist who can't keep a monthly deadline, don't put them on a monthly book. Put them on either a miniseries that you can finish early or put them on a graphic novel. Do not... And also, why give someone like that a dual writer and artist position?
We joke about it a lot, but it does suck because people do genuinely like the books. I have plenty of
and
people
that
like him, and we're waiting for that book to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sucks when we have to tell someone, hey, it got pushed back. But it's still coming out. It's coming out. It just got pushed back.
And then 2 weeks later... So it turns out we were wrong, and they said it was still coming out, and now it's not. But maybe it is, but now it's not, and we're not sure. There's a lot of that going on.
Right.
It's just annoying, and it's unnecessary. And I think part of the problem was that when they put him on that book, which was, I guess, they probably made the decision about a year ago,
mm-hmm.
They had no idea they were going to do DC Rebirth. And since it was a companion series to the regular Justice League comic, it wasn't a big deal because it was like, well, it'll come out when it comes out, and people will either like it or they won't. But now it's like, oh, it's not going to come out in time for DC Rebirth, so it'll kind of come out, and now it's not.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, if you're a big fan of Brian Hitch's Justice League of America, I guess just get on board with Justice League Rebirth, which unfortunately I haven't had a chance to read yet. Because the Rebirth issue, which we've discussed, should be called the Zero issue.
Right. Super confusing.
Yeah, we've had quite a few customers come in and tell us about this Justice League Rebirth. Okay, well, they have the Rebirth Special, which looks like it's a #1 issue, but it's not.
Or the books that have gone to #2 now. Mm-hmm. Someone comes in and they want to catch up, so they grab Rebirth #1 mm-hmm. and they grab 2, mm-hmm. and it's hey, I think I missed something here. And
yeah.
That was a terrible, terrible idea.
Yeah, there should have either been a 0 on it or just no number. It should have just said Rebirth Special, Rebirth One Shot. Actually, that would have been a simple solution.
One Shot.
They used to make comics that just said One Shot on it.
They still do.
So. But yeah, no other DC news, really.
No.
I don't know if it's the biggest news anymore. It probably is. So, Marvel announced early last week that there would be a new person behind the armor in the new Iron Man series.
The woman in the Iron Mask.
Yes. Invincible Iron Man will be rebooted for or relaunched technically for the 5th time in 2 or 3 years.
Well, are they relaunching Invincible Iron Man, or is it going to be a different book?
It is going to be Invincible Iron Man.
Okay.
That is confirmed.
Because there's Invincible Iron Man, International Iron Man.
International Iron Man, I shouldn't even say that, because technically we don't know how many Iron Man series are coming out.
Right.
As of now, there are no announcements about International Iron Man, though. A character that was introduced, 3 months ago? If that, 2 or 3 months ago, Riri Williams, a 15-year-old African-American female who's going to MIT.
She reverse engineered an Iron Man armor suit.
I don't know if she reverse engineered it or just built it out of scraps to look kind of like a War Machine suit.
Okay.
But either way, when the character debuted, it seemed pretty obvious that she was going to replace Rhodey.
That's what it seemed like.
And turned out not to be the case. Even though Rhodey was killed off, she is going to be the new person playing Iron Man, the Invincible Iron Man.
Right.
And so a few reactions to that. I mean, people definitely started flipping out about buying the, issue 7 of Invincible Iron Man that she turned up in?
9.
It was 9? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so that book overnight went up to like $40, $50 a pop, even though people weren't buying it 2 months before because that's how the speculator market works. But yeah, and I saw a lot of people, upset that Tony Stark was no longer Iron Man, which technically we don't know, but
we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but of course the internet doesn't work that way.
Right. We'll get into in a little bit that it is kind of implied that not that he will be dead, but that he will not be Iron Man anymore.
Right.
But so there was that, and I saw a few people upset, and I was like, well, number one, Tony Stark is going to be Iron Man again. There's absolutely no chance in this day and age when Robert Downey Jr. is arguably the number one movie star on the planet that you will not see Tony Stark behind that armor again. And also, it's comics.
Yeah. I mean, Marvel seems to be doing the all new, all different kind of thing, whereas DC has gone to uber traditional.
Nah, I wouldn't say uber traditional, but DC is starting to remember why their comics were popular in the first place and sort of hybridizing the old and what they've been doing for the last 5 years. And they're obviously going to lean more and more towards the, I wouldn't say traditional, but the style of comics that we grew up with, which is what differentiated them from Marvel. The New 52 Marvelized DC, and not, in some ways for the better, in some ways for the poor. But yeah, so Marvel's definitely kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent from its traditional roles and all that. You've got like 8 people in the Spider-Man suit. Maybe not 8, maybe like 4 or 5. Something like that. I mean, Mary Jane just became one of them.
Iron Spider,
yeah. You got 2 people in the Captain America costume with the shield. And as we'll discuss in a second, you have at least 2 people wearing Tony Stark's Iron Man armor that aren't Tony Stark. There's just there's a lot of doubling up of heroes. It's and I guess it's there in theory to not offend people who spent literally thousands of dollars buying whatever it is, Captain America comics, Thor comics, and all that, but still sort of try to appeal to people who want something almost new or at least with a different face.
They do a pretty good job of that with at least the Spider-Man books. There's the Spidey series, which is classic Spider-Man tales, not too serious. Then I find the Miles Morales Spider-Man series to be more of a traditional.
Miles Morales is probably to me the best example of what Marvel's doing, because when that character debuted, you still had Peter Parker. It wasn't like they were like, well, we're going to kill off Peter Parker because he's old and we're done with him.
Right.
It was, that did happen, but it happened in the Ultimate Universe, which honestly needed new blood. Like, it was too much of a copycat of the regular Marvel Universe. And he's become his own character, and he's a fun character. He's a good character. He's a good intro character for young kids. So, I'm cool with that, and I'm cool with him now that he's in the regular Marvel Universe. I do get kind of annoyed with, now that it's become very quickly rampant among Marvel, having multiple characters that just have the same identity with no, Steve Rogers and Falcon, both occupying the same role. It became a little bit too much, and I appreciate that there are people who, want to see a Falcap comic,
right?
But at the same time, it's like it's
it's
happening a little too much.
It kind of muddies the water a little bit,
right? Especially when you're having it more and more characters are doing this. Like there's a comic that I'm almost wondering if it's making fun of it. The Deadpool comic where it's like Mercs for Hire, or whatever it is, where he has a bunch of money. Yeah, there you go, Mercs for Money.
They all dress up like Deadpool.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if that's making fun of what Marvel's been doing. Maybe not. And speaking of which, at least one of those characters, if not, is Slapstick one of the characters in Mercs for Money?
So I want to say he's in there. Slapstick, Madcap, Stingray. I'm not gonna name them all. Right.
One of them is Terror Inc.
Yes,
the old '90s horror. I don't even know. It wasn't a superhero comic. I don't remember. It was just a weird comic, which was like about a Frankenstein monster that was also a detective. I don't know. Anyway, but at least one, if not a couple of those characters are going to get their own series. One of them is Solo, the 90s sort of Punisher pastiche that used to occupy some of the Spider-Man comics at the time. I think Eric Larson even created him, I believe. But there's a bunch of new books that are being announced, and two of them have probably the majority of my interest. One of them is that there will be for sure a second Iron Man title, and that's Infamous Iron Man,
starring
Victor Von Doom, who has been in International Iron Man, I believe,
right,
as a secondary character. So the premise that they've in the announcement is that Victor Von Doom is going to succeed where Tony Stark failed. There's no word on what that means, what exactly Tony failed at. Like, is it something out of Civil War, or is it Tony Stark's idea of a future, or what? Which I guess would be ironic in this case.
Sounds pretty cool, though.
Mm-hmm. That's probably going to be the hot book that people are going to be going after. People love Doctor Doom, and I don't know. This sounds like sort of a hybrid of three things. It's Iron Man. It's a little bit of Superior Spider-Man, obviously. And then, like we've been lacking a Fantastic Four book, so there might be a little, like, old school kind of Lee Kirby stuff going on. We don't know. That one's being done, well, it'll probably not be Lee Kirby because that one's being done by Brian Bendis and Alex Maleev, whose style couldn't be further from Jack Kirby. But I think you get what I'm saying.
Right.
So that one's definitely the one that people are most interested in. But so now we have two books that Tony Stark isn't in.
As a main character.
It is worth noting that Marvel put out a little teaser poster or banner online for the Marvel Now ! With shockwaves. That's not going to play very well, but if you saw the logo, it's Marvel Now! Explosion, aftershock, I don't know. Anyway.
It's the one where they really earn the exclamation point.
Right. So the banner says, "Divided we stand," and it's got a literal rift between two sides of heroes. One side is the older heroes, and the second side is a bunch of new heroes, including Riri Williams, Gwenpool, Squirrel Girl, the new young Doctor Strange. There's a Hulk that I'm assuming is totally awesome Hulk. Miles Morales, the new Wasp. Kamala Khan, a Blue Beetle-looking character that's probably Mosaic. And if you haven't heard Mosaic, he's a new Inhuman character that's going to be getting his own book.
Prowler.
Yeah, there's and again, we're assuming a Prowler character. He has a very Prowler costume, but anyway, so
is Peter Parker not in here?
That is an excellent point. No, there is no sign of Peter Parker on either side there. Actually, who's also not pictured? Falcap.
Right.
But, they probably wanted to fit in characters that had, like, a primary book or something like that they were going to be announcing. Yeah, there's a giant dinosaur-looking foot that's probably Fin Fang Foom.
It's pretty cool. I'm a big Fin Fang fan.
Yeah. And then there's a character that you suggested is probably Gamora from the Guardians of the Galaxy, but she's dressed a little closer to She-Hulk, but it's clearly not She-Hulk. I don't know. There's a lot going on with it, but all this is to suggest that there's going to be a new quasi-event. Like Marvel does these things like Dark Reign.
Right.
They aren't really events, but they're sort of themes.
They kind of take place in the background of the books you're reading, to where, if you're reading across, you'll kind of get this cool little
It's
thing.
a theme that happens throughout the Marvel books for the most part. And so Marvel had been putting out these teasers of various young heroes holding up their Avengers card, tearing them up and saying, "I quit."
Right.
So one of the things they announced is an upcoming Champions book, which I think Marvel had some legal troubles with the name Champion, and I guess they got it back. They must have Disney must have bought them off, I guess, because they really wanted a Champions book. But so Champions is going to be sort of it looks like it's going to be a very much an original, like a version of the original New Warriors concept.
Right on.
Which is going to have, so it's going to be like the young Avengers, but they don't want to be Avengers anymore. It's going to have young Cyclops from All New X-Men. It's going to have Totally Awesome Hulk, Kamala Khan Miss Marvel, Miles Morales Spider-Man, and a character from I'd say, cult classic isn't the word, but a book that people have been quietly really enjoying but hasn't been tearing up the charts, The Vision. The Vision's daughter, if you can call her that, Viv Vision, is going to be a member of the Champions, and the first issues of the Vision have been going up in price because of that.
Yep.
Again, speculators. So Marvel's been implying that there's going to be a big division after Civil War II between the older heroes and the newer heroes. And obviously this teaser's playing that up.
It's interesting because in Civil War, there's not necessarily an old and a young side.
No.
It's just, one side or the other. And this is just...
Although there was that one teaser where Miss Marvel was doing a Sinead O'Connor impression, tearing up a picture of her hero, Captain Marvel. But no, other than that, you're right. There hasn't been a whole lot of, but you can see...
And maybe this kind of brand split would be kind of like what you're talking about, to where if you like the traditional stuff, you can read this. If you like the progressive stuff, you can read this. And
it's interesting because I would almost say that maybe a far more interesting story for Civil War II would have been the division between the old and the young.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if it would have made more sense, but it certainly would have been almost a more relatable idea. But in any case, clearly that's what they're going for, at least for the foreseeable future with Marvel. And let's see. So before we get into a little bit about like the implications for Civil War II, I did want to mention probably the book I'm most interested in, which is called Unworthy Thor.
Oh, yeah.
Jason Aaron is now doing a second Thor title with, who's the artist? Olivier Coipel, who drew the Civil War #0 comic.
Good stuff.
Basically, the idea is that the Odin son, the Thor that people are most familiar with, he's been missing for quite some time. I remember just before Secret Wars, he and Hyperion went into another universe to try and find someplace safe or something like that for the Marvel heroes. And Hyperion came back, but we have not seen anything of the Thor Odin son.
Being that Jane Foster is...
But she was around before...
The one they call Thor, right.
Yeah. So he's been gone for a while, and this title is supposed to explain a couple of things. Number one, it's supposed to explain why Thor is no longer worthy of holding Mjolnir, which is something that Marvel hasn't revealed for, I guess it's like 2 years now.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
People kind of even forgot about Original Sin. It wasn't that good, to be honest with you. It was pretty forgettable. Also written by Jason Aaron, as I recall, which is a shame because I like him. But it's going to explain that. It's going to explain where the Odin son is because he's no longer called Thor. And it's going to supposedly be about his quest to become worthy again. Because I didn't realize this, so one of the aftershocks of Secret Wars in the end was the Ultimate Thor's version of Mjolnir, which is the giant axe hammer.
Right, the hammer on the front, claw on the back.
Yeah. That thing apparently came into our universe. There must have been some panel where they showed that. I didn't see it. But so again, Odin's son, they don't call him Thor anymore, is he finds out that there's a second Mjolnir out there, and he's out there to find it and see if he's worthy. So it should be. I'm really interested in this. I'm a big fan of Quapple's art, which has gotten better and better over the years. And he was pretty awesome when he debuted in the J. Michael Straczynski Thor series.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I mean that makes this a return to what made him famous. And Jason Aaron, not obviously we just talked about Original Sin kind of sucking, but Jason Aaron's probably one of the more solid writers out there.
Pretty much one of the most solid writers out there.
And I mean on a variety of things. Like I first came to notice him on Scalped, and then I was really skeptical of his Wolverine the X-Men series just because it's rewriting Wolverine's character as far as I'm concerned. But that was like the best X-Men comic since Whedon left.
It's really cool when someone can do like an original property or one of like the more indie books, and then come in and take the reins on a traditional superhero book, and it still be really cool. And
weren't you? Wasn't he on Southern Bastards?
Jason Aaron.
Yeah, because I know you were a big fan of the series, but I never read it. But so that's going to be Unworthy Thor, and we don't know when any of these are coming out, but presumably, how many issues is Civil War 2? 8? They've been coming out, twice a month?
Oh, I think they're every 3 weeks or so. I don't think they're twice a month.
So these are probably going to come out closer to, I'd say, October.
They're all October, yeah.
They have said that? Okay. I do want to, not to be negative, but I do want to discuss a little bit of my problem with these solicitations. Even though they're exciting,
they do create some.
They're sort of superseding Civil War II and implying certain things. Folks, this is where it's almost spoilery, except the fact that Marvel has made these announcements.
But maybe not, because
it's okay. So we don't know how Civil War II is going to end. However, everything they put out has heavily implied that one way or another, Tony Stark will lose.
What that means. We don't
know. They have also implied that it is not a clean victory, that though Carol will win, she's going to lose some things and probably some people as a result of this. But she is going to be, in the Marvel Comics universe, put in the position of being the most popular superhero on the planet. She's going to be, I guess, Marvel's front runner. And to be fair, that's what they've been trying to do for 4 years now. And they haven't been very successful at it, but they've been trying.
It reminds me of pro wrestling when they keep trying to tell you this guy's the champion and they want you to root for him, but the fans still boo him. They're like, no, he's the one.
Well, to use your analogy, Kurt Angle was hated until he became a heel, and then it was like, oh no, this guy's cool.
Yep. I
think Marvel's problem is they keep pushing this idea. They want their Wonder Woman. When they had Kelly Sue DeConnick on the series, they wanted to. They recreated Miss Marvel as Captain Marvel, and I like the costume. I don't really... The Captain Marvel thing seemed a little silly to me because it's an equally silly name.
Right.
But fair enough. So they made this decision, and they wanted Kelly Sue DeConnick to be their Gail Simone, their head female writer, which is a silly premise. You should just have good writers regardless of what their gender is. And I think that's how most fans feel. But then they also wanted Captain Marvel to be their Wonder Woman. And I think maybe the problem is trying to, and I understand it's more of a metaphor, but maybe don't push that idea and just try to make the character as great as she can be and just focus on that instead of trying to make her the most prominent female superheroes superhero for artificial reasons.
Absolutely.
Gwenpool is one of the series that's out right now. Gwenpool made a much bigger splash.
And that is not a deep character
No.
or an iconic
character. It was actually, the funny thing is the costume design was a complete misread of like a silly variant cover that Chris Bachalo did.
Right.
Because like in the variant cover that she debuts in, she's got her mask up so that she can drink something, and people thought that was the way the mask functions. Right. When in actuality, it was just a Deadpool mask that comes down all the way. There is no depth to that character, And
I'll tell you what, that book was a lot better than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. It's a fun character. It's a fun book.
Mm-hmm. Good art. It's a cool book. But my point is, like, that character made a much bigger splash than any of the Captain Marvel relaunches that they've done.
And a lot of that stuff just has to happen organically. You can't tell people what's going to be awesome. It just doesn't work like that.
My favorite version of Carol Danvers was actually Binary. The Claremont years when she joined the Starjammers. And it's not even necessarily her as a space pirate thing, although that would be pretty awesome if they went back to that. But I just thought the Binary powers and look were much more interesting than a lot of the more recent stuff.
Right.
But in any case, we're very off topic. So, as I'm wont to do, so these solicitations have basically told us that Carol Danvers is going to win Civil War II some kind of way. And the problem is, like, this is a YouTube channel, but it's a YouTube channel associated with a comic book shop. And one of the problems with comic book shops is the relations with the publishers these days, and how they'll go to, for instance, I think it was Time Magazine that they announced the Riri Williams.
Yeah, whether it's Time Magazine or USA Today
or somebody leaks it to Bleeding Cool,
or it's on The View or whatever.
Right, like the comic shop should know first, and it shouldn't supersede a comic that we're selling on the stands now.
Right, and it'd be a lot cooler for us to be able to tell the people that read these books, hey, you got something pretty cool in the pipeline, check this out.
And I know it's hard to keep a secret in this day and age.
Yeah.
But even though people had guessed, Marvel did a pretty good job of keeping Totally Awesome Hulk a secret until it came out. People had guessed, but no one knew.
Before the internet media days, when you'd be doing your orders, Marvel would be like, hey, you want to up your order on this one. And you'd up your order on it, and you knew something was going to happen. So, yeah, I like being surprised.
It's just
nice
hard
to be surprised
when you have, like, the people that really love Civil War II, I don't think we'll have a problem with. But people who are on the fence, who are just kind of like, it's okay.
What's the point?
Yeah, you're going to have people that do that, and you see that all the time in, like, say, football games. Like, if somebody's just kind of interested in a football game, and they didn't get to watch it, and somebody tells them the score, it's like, well, I'm not watching that now.
Right.
And I think it's a similar element. And I do get that there is a problem with telling comic shops and not telling the media, because what will end up happening is there are some comic shops who will leak it to Bleeding Cool for notoriety or special favors. I don't really understand how that relationship works, but yeah, it's kind of it's just a bummer, like, when you're trying to sell people on a comic that the comic shops buy these comics.
Right.
They're not. It's not a what's the word? Not loan, but when consignment. It's not consignment where it's like we'll just nobody's buying it, we'll just send it back. If you do something that hurts the viability of the comic for a certain number of people, we're just out that money. I get it though. It's the internet. It's kind of hard to control these things. I just wish that comics publishers would be a little more friendly towards comic shops.
It'd be nice if the people that actually cared about the product were the first ones to learn about the product.
Right.
Is all. It'd be nice.
That said, again, I'm interested in all these comics. I'll probably Champions, I think, looks kind of cool. I'm a big fan of Cyclops and several of these characters, so cool. I guess the last thing we'll talk about is the Star Trek controversy. Star Trek Fast and the Furious is coming out, I guess, at the end of the month. That's absolutely what it looks like. And I know it's not just because Justin Lin directed it, it's because he made it into like a very, which I'm fine with. It looks like a fun movie, not necessarily a Star Trek film, but to be honest, the last two movies weren't really much of Star Trek films either.
No, they're
what they are.
Yeah.
And I actually really like the first one. But, so it was announced that, is it Hikaru Sulu?
Yeah.
In the new universe, is a homosexual character. He will have a same-sex relationship at some point in the movie. I don't know if they're going to
have a child together.
Oh, did they say that?
Well, not together, but yeah, they're gonna have a child.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well,
which pretty whatever. I was like, hey, okay, cool.
Yeah, I heard the news, and my immediate thought was like, that's a pretty nice tribute to George Takei,
and that's what it was meant to be, as a tribute to someone who's pretty much
a
pillar.
It's also, we talked about the fact that it's sometimes, and I'm looking at you, Marvel and DC, in an effort to create diversity, they'll just force something down people's throats.
Right.
Like making Bobby Drake gay in X-Men. That was ridiculous. And it doesn't do any good. It doesn't make people feel like, oh, there's another gay character. No, it was dumb. It's dumb. But with this, it didn't feel like they just wanted to randomly make a character gay.
Right.
And again, first of all, it's a different universe. Because in the original universe,
they call it the Kelvinverse, I believe.
I don't know. I know Paramount owns the movies and CBS owns the TV shows now. But so
Paramount verse.
There you go. In the Paramount verse, that Hikaru Sulu had a daughter and all that, so he wasn't definitely straight. I mean, he could have just, whatever. But he was, as far as we know, a heterosexual character. But in the new universe, why not? Why not? It's a nice tribute.
Right.
And like I said, it's easy to swallow.
It was pretty cool thing, to someone who's.
It went down easy.
Who's a pillar of the Star Trek community, pretty much beloved by everyone.
Yes. Not me so much, to be honest with you. I think he's funny, but George Takei, he's a little too much Will Wheaton these days, where people treat him like you need to hear his opinions. Yeah, I don't need to. Like I like the original series of Star Trek. I don't really care what Hikaru Sulu has to say.
But apparently he did not really care for this tribute.
No, and supposedly he even knew about it in advance and sort of protested it. And I guess the idea is that in his mind, it implied that homosexuality was a choice. I think that's what he was trying to say. I'm not really clear. In any case, it took something really nice and he kind of spit in their face. I don't know if that was his intent, but...
No, it could have just been a nice little nod.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would have really cared one way or the other, and now it's a thing.
He could have also just said, I'm not a big fan of it, and just let it go.
Right.
But it's not like anything's being changed. The John Cho, was it? His last name's Cho. I can't think of the guy. The guy who's played Sulu in the new series. He is playing a gay character now.
Mm-hmm.
That's there. So why make a fuss about it? I don't know. It's just sad that you have something nice announced, and because it's 2016, it immediately becomes a thing on the internet. So screw you, George Takei.
I'm not gonna go that far. I disagree.
No, it's whatever. He's an old man. He's allowed to be bitter.
We gotta end on something a little lighter, though. If you've been reading some of the DC stuff, they've got the Hanna-Barbera license, and they've been doing this pretty cool stuff with all the Hanna-Barbera books. The new Flintstones book is pretty funny. Definitely check that out. They're doing a Thundercats He-Man crossover series, which is pretty bonkers. Yeah.
It combines two beloved but maybe underserved.
Pretty niche.
I mean, there's been a pretty great He-Man comic on the stands for a while now. I think it's over.
It's over with, yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. It was pretty great. But it comics fans, for whatever reason, aren't picking up on the sword and sorcery stuff. Even though He-Man has a fan base. But yeah, Freddie Williams, who's one of my favorite artists that doesn't quite. He's not quite on. Like, people know who he is, but he's not A-list. He's going to be drawing it, and
should be pretty cool.
It's cool, It's been a while since there's been a Thundercats comic. I want to say Image was the last people to have it, probably a while ago, and so yeah, cool stuff. I think that's about it. I don't think there's a whole lot of other news going on.
No, so, there will be next time.
We don't have any books on us. Do you have anything to recommend?
I would highly recommend that you check out a book that we talked about, The Vision by Tom King, who is now writing Batman.
There's a trade of it that just came out this week.
The trade is out, yes.
And also came out this week, so they're ending the Darth Vader comic. They felt like Kieran Gillen's done with it, so...
Well, he said they just set out, they wanted to tell a story, and that's all they wanted to do, so...
But that's not to say they won't reboot it with a different creative team at some point soon. But in any case, so they came out with a hardcover that I believe collects the first 12 issues. 12 issues. And so that's on stands right now.
Pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. I think Darth Vader's been one of the better received Star Wars comics.
It's good.
Even the regular Star Wars series, which sells very well, it's floated a little bit in and out as far as how well it sells. But Darth
Vader's been consistently awesome.
People love Darth Vader, so check that out. And I guess remember to support your local comic shops. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Uncle_REB. I'm
at Fletch Boogie.
You can find BSI Comics on Facebook at BSI Comics
and Insta.
Yeah, we're on the Grammy Gram.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what the kids call it.
I don't know.
But all right, and read more comics and keep it metal and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, that's why we love Disney.